Hey guys, this is Grant Evans, your favorite Utah realtor. Here today, we are coming to you live from Orem, Utah. We are here at the closing table. We are here with John Harrison, who is the man here at Guaranteed Rate Affinity, who is a preferred lender of Coldwell Banker. We are here to talk about the reasons or tips to move to a different state and what the things you need to do in order to make things really smooth, because we know moving is already hard. So John is here to help us. A little background about John. John has been in the industry for 25 years. He speaks Spanish, entonces si necesitan hablar con Juan, llámale. I probably said that really bad. Guaranteed Rate Affinity is the third largest mortgage banker in the nation. It is the number one jumbo lender as far as rates go. Rates are very good with Guaranteed Rate on the jumbo side, and VA loans, something we like to do for our veterans, that there are no fees other than just your title and escrow fees. John is a 14-time award-winning mortgage originator based on volume. In case anybody is wondering, that's a lot. 14 times is a lot. We are here to talk to John about moving to a different state, the things that we need to do to make the transition smooth. And so, John, I'm going to throw you the question of the day, the $1 million question.
Sure.
What are the things that people need to do if they're relocating to a different state?
Okay.
What are the finances stuff they need to do?
The number one thing that we notice when people are trying to move from one state to another state is occupation. You know, what are you doing when you move to the new state? I mean, if you're self-employed, we've got to be able to have proof that you can now do the job you're leaving in the new state. Or if you've got a regular job, we've got to get some kind of letter from your company stating that you're allowed to work remotely and that there's no issue with you changing states to keep your job. Because the number one thing we do see is people just aren't set up to work in the new state. And so you cannot use your income. If, let's say, you're moving from California to Utah, you can't keep your owner-occupied housing, buy your owner-occupied housing here in Utah if your job is still based in California and you don't have those items. Give you an example. Back in July, we had a client who was coming here with their spouse. He had his job all set up here. She worked for Pepsi, and basically they were going to transfer her here, but they did not have it scheduled. They said it would be one of those things when an opportunity came up, they would let her make the transfer. So when she came and did her loan, she was doing it as owner-occupied with a loan officer. And the Pepsi company, when you do an owner-occupied property, you have to move in within about 60 days of closing on your new home to do it that way. Well, Pepsi wouldn't guarantee the job, so she couldn't guarantee she was going to move in with that 60 days. And so the loan all kind of blew up on her, and they had to then restart over with a new lender, and they had to then do it as a non-occupying co-borrower with her spouse being the borrower that was moving here. And when her job would change, great. But until then, you had to change the whole way you were doing the loan and start the whole process over, which was, a little frustrating to the buyers, to the sellers, to everyone involved.
That sounds really complicated and an unfortunate situation. Well, you said one thing at the beginning. It was proof of being able to do your job still in the new state.
That's correct.
What would that proof look like?
Most of the time, we're asking for a letter from the employer stating that you can work remotely without having any issues for their same company. We have quite a few people, especially with COVID. You've got a large percentage of people now working from home. It doesn't matter where they live now because they can work from home as long as they've got good internet. It doesn't matter.
Well, if that person is self-employed, how do they show evidence?
Then it's going to come down to what is their occupation? What do they do for a living? Is it something where we just had one client who does work all over the country with her self-employed job? And so we were able to show that is something that doesn't matter where she lives. She was doing things in other states. But for some of those people who are, let's say they're an HVAC company and it's their company and they want to move to Utah, they're not going to be able to do that. There's just no way to prove that they're going to be able to continue keeping up that amount of money of income by moving to another state and starting over. So they basically would not be able to come unless they were able to get a W-2 job or be able to do something else. If
a worker, or I guess just an individual, is able to travel from Utah to a different state, for example, last year I was able to close on a home in Alpine. I was representing the seller, and the buyer was an attorney in California, and he would fly out a couple times a week, even back to Sacramento or wherever he was, to continue practicing. Is that okay?
And once again, you would need a really good explanation letter. They'd probably want to see something from the CPA stating that that's what you do. And those are things that you can usually prove, that you can show a consistent flight history, where money's being spent going back and forth. I have a guy who lives in Vernal who actually works in a mine in Arizona, but he wanted to buy his owner occupied in Vernal because that's where his wife was, his kids were, and he would come back home on weekends. And we were able to show that, hey, he had a history of going and working this job, and on weekends he came home. So a lot of times it might be up to an underwriter. So the great thing with Guaranteed Rate Affinity is we have a power bid program. And I suggest to anybody who's trying to buy, whether you're working with us or someone else, you need to get with a company that allows you to get pre-approved up front through an underwriter, not just pre-approved by your loan officer, because honestly, we're not the ones who are signing off on your stuff. We're not the ones making those important decisions. We have to follow the guidelines. And so we have that power bid where you can actually turn in your file to an actual underwriter. They will underwrite the file based on your income, your letters, going through everything, and let you know if you're approved right up front before you waste any time looking at a home. You actually come back fully approved with final conditions. So you just have to then find a property, get your title, your appraisal, and your homeowner's insurance. And I don't know of many companies that do that. But for me, that is the way, especially with COVID. I've got clients who have changed jobs 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the last few years as they've been headhunted to come over and get paid more money. But you got to make sure they can use all that income, because sometimes they're going from a base that's pretty high and a lot more commission, or vice versa. And then it doesn't flow through until they've got a history of it. So just know that's our biggest thing as I push is that power bid. Especially if you're changing states, you don't want to have a hiccup when you're already got a moving truck on its way here with your stuff and find out you didn't close. And I get several calls this every summer, because that seems to be when everybody wants to make the big move with the kids, and people's loans are not closing, and they've been told they will because they did not have those approvals done up front.
That full approval is just an absolute game changer. Instead of closing in maybe 30 days, you're looking at a lot sooner than that.
Once you're approved and all that, most of my loans that have a power bid, once they find the house and go under contract, we're usually closing in 12 to 14 days. It's typically we're waiting for the sellers to get out of the house.
Yeah. Well, that is absolutely wonderful. I know that we are currently working with a client who is kind of on waiting right now. They're waiting for hopefully some more money to come in soon. But the family is moving from Tennessee here to Utah, wonderful family, and they are self-employed individuals. I think, now correct me if I'm wrong in this, I feel like the biggest struggle with anybody relocating to the state of Utah is finding a place to stay.
Yep, it is. Because a lot of places don't want to rent month to month. They want a 6-month term, and then all of a sudden you're locked into something. So it does make it difficult, so we've got some clients, that we've had, with you, especially they'll fly out, they'll want to find something. And they're like, but what do we do in the meantime until we close? We've got 30 days because of this situation or that situation, or I need to be on my new job for 30 days. I just had a BYU professor, came from Pennsylvania. And the wife was just waiting for us to be able to get our stuff done. And then in some cases, you're trying to sell a home back where you're coming from. So you got to make sure everything lines up properly. But once again, having that pre-approval up front, showing your other home's going to sell, and having all those numbers from title so that they can verify that those things are correct, because nothing is worse than the client that gets to closing, forgets that they're paying their realtor or they're paying the other guy's closing costs, and then realizes they don't have enough money to actually close on their new house. And you're scrambling. And we've had that twice. I've had twice this summer where I've had loan officers call me because I manage people and say, hey, here's a situation. They're short $7,000. What do we do? And you're at the table.
Nightmare.
Yep. I just had one in August with one of my other realtors at another company. And I told him, I don't know that your client really understands everything. So you want to make sure when you're putting a house up to sell that you get your estimated HUDs from title. That's what realtors do. That's what you do. You make sure that this is as least of a painful transaction as possible, and people will come back to you because they want it to be a good experience. And there's so many things that can go wrong, but there's so many ways you can prevent it from happening by doing your homework up front.
I think having, like we were talking about, financing, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, everything is done, that is going to help out definitely the most, I think. Yeah. And then finding, the place that you want to live in. I think with rentals, there's a lot of pros and cons that come with it. Some people might think, I'm going to rent for a year while I am waiting to find something to buy. Mm-hmm. Now, the little caveat I would say with that is if you're looking to rent, yes, there's flexibility. I think it definitely helps if there's a month-to-month because it provides a lot of flexibility, especially if you're already under contract with something. But just know, renting is kind of that little trap of getting comfortable. And then all of a sudden you just keep waiting. I'm just going to wait for this to happen. I've got another very good friend. They're coming from Tennessee as well. And they are deciding whether to come to Utah or not. They really want to, but they just think, oh, the interest rates are high. But then before that, it was, well, the competition is so bad. It's always there. You know, there's a video on Instagram that has like a skateboarder that's going around a skate park and isn't going into like the rink or anything like that, or the half pipe or whatever, because he's waiting for the perfect moment. It never happens. Buying and selling is just an inconvenient thing in of itself. It's a change. It's a change in your life, and changes are always inconvenient. But being able to say, I am fully approved, I am set, I've got a job, self-employed, I can show evidence that I can do this from another state. By the way, if people are doing this if you're going to be moving to Utah and you're going to be changing jobs completely and you're self-employed, you got to wait probably another 2 years then.
No, it depends.
Well,
if you're going to W-2 employee, 30 days.
Well, I mean, if you're going from 1099 to 1099, if you're saying like, look, I'm an HVAC company, I own my own company, I'm going to sell it, and then I'm going to use that $1 million I got from selling it to buy a $2 million home. I need $1 million loan or whatever it may be.
It's not happening.
You're 1099. Yep. You're starting a new company in Utah. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
2 years.
You have 2 years. That's right. Banks, I feel like, because I'm self-employed, I'm a 1099. I feel like banks don't really like us because we're just so not consistent. But just know, like, if anybody's thinking of coming here and staying in a rental for a while, be careful of that trap, because you might think for that perfect opportune moment to buy something when really in a year, oh shoot, I should have bought last year. People always say the best time to buy a house was 5 years ago, and it's true.
Yeah, and the thing we always tell people is, look, rates are going to change and fluctuate. You're marrying the house. You're going to date the rate. You know, find the house that you want, buy it. We can see consistently, even in this market, you're still going to see somewhere between a 4 and 10% appreciation. And the reality is, interest rates might be 7, but guess what? That's 7%. When you rent, your interest is 100% because you're not getting anything from it.
Right. But it does provide a lot of convenience. It does provide a lot of flexibility. And granted, it will most likely be cheaper than, depending on how much you put down, than a mortgage. You know, I was helping a family friend of mine that they were looking for condos in Provo. 3-bed, 1-bath. This condo right next to BYU Stadium, $335. They're going to put 3 to 5% down. After their HOA and assumed utilities costs they would be looking at about $2,700-$2,800 a month for this 3-bed, 1-bath condo that was built in 1975, and they just couldn't do it. But granted, if they rented that, it'd probably be closer to 2.
Yeah.
You know? So like, yes, that $2,000 a month though that they're paying goes to the landlord, and the landlord's really the only one who really benefits from it, rather than somebody who's buying this condo at $2,800 a month. And then you actually get to pay. I mean, granted, the majority of the first part of their payment will be interest, but they still have equity appreciation in the market that will come eventually. You know, maybe in 6 months. You know, might not be the case, but
yeah, we don't even get into the write-offs with your interest that you pay on your home and things like that. You need to make sure to talk to an accountant, but they'll be able to show you there is some benefits also to having that house. You know, as far as write-offs and things, I've always looked at it. You know, I had an opportunity when I first got into the business to be able to buy a home within that first year. And it's scary. It is scary. It's scary to have a house. It's scary to be like, oh my gosh, I've got utilities, I've got taxes, insurance, you know, especially when I was single, you know, but the reality was I built upon that, you know, 25 years ago, almost where I started buying. And now I have several homes, and I look back and go, oh my gosh, why didn't I buy more? Because the values continue to go up. And for some people, I mean, that's how you retire, especially when we're self-employed like we are. You know, what else are you going to do? You know, if you don't have a 401k really, or you haven't put away money, real estate, they're not making any new real estate, you know, so it's always going to be in your benefit, you know. But like I tell people is, buy what you want. You're never going to find the perfect house. Every inspection is going to come back. Even on a home inspection on a brand new house, I've seen things come back that make you go, oh my gosh. But find something that meets your needs. It might not be all your wants, but it meets your needs for you and your family. And from there, I really don't think you can lose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you, John, for your time today.
Yeah.
We are out of time today. But if anybody is looking to relocate to the state of Utah or anybody else, Guaranteed Rate Affinity is a national-wide brokerage or mortgage company.
Every state in the country.
Every state in the country. Any territories? Any Puerto Rico or anything like that?
No Puerto Rico.
Okay, so just states.
But I can refer you to anybody to do a loan in any state if I'm not licensed there.
And how can people reach you?
My number is 801-404-9796. Also, you can reach me by email. It is jharrison, HARRISON, at GRARATE.com. Love to help you out or get you referred to somebody who can take care of you, because I know we do a good job. And like I said, always do what you need to do so that you're comfortable, get pre-approved, and work with good people. Work with people who know what they're doing. The great thing is Grant wants you to be successful. He wants it to be a great experience. So that's why he brings in people like me who have a lot of experience and aren't just jumping into the market because they want to make a quick dollar. Get experience, get knowledge, and you'll have a better experience overall.
Yeah. And just to recap everything we talked about, make sure your finances are 100% in order. All your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed and all that fun stuff. And just make sure that you are financially secure. And that's going to be the biggest help with moving to Utah or another state. So thank you, John, for visiting us.
Thanks for inviting me.
So thank you for watching The Closing Table. This is Grant Evans, your favorite Utah realtor. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Grant Evans Real Estate, and we will see you next time at The Closing Table.